When it first came to America, it wasn't called a big deal.
The risk right now, today, currently, is really relatively low. The risk right now to the American public is really very low.
At the moment, I didn't think it was a big deal because I had a semblance of faith that we'd be able to handle it relatively well, and we now know that that's not the case. So I thought it would blow over pretty quickly. When they started, I noticed that it was a bit more serious in some places.
More than 10,000 people have now died in Italy.
Now it is Latin America's turn to face the pain of the COVID-19 storm.
And that it spread what it did, but at the beginning of the lockdowns, I still didn't think it'd be as bad as it ended up being here. So even throughout the lockdown, my opinions continued to change. Both. It's during the lockdown, I've worked harder than I ever had to because of the negative effects, which is it forced me to do digital learning, which is definitely not my learning style. So I struggled a lot more with school and allowed me to push past my previous limits and work harder than I ever have. I probably would have started driving everywhere more than I now. I'm just kind of driving occasionally, but I'd also I would probably be able to form better sentences since I haven't been talking that much on a daily basis as I used to, obviously, like with you and my friends and stuff like that. Like I said, it's not my learning style and it has been difficult for me, but I think in a time like this, it's become necessary. So, at least for me, I have prioritized my personal health over my school. So, obviously, if I were to prioritize my school, I would have chosen in person learning, but I chose to step away because even if I start to do a little bit more poorly in school now, school will always be there. But if I risk my life now, I won't always be there. But exercising more, uh, I got more into my community and I started reading more. I didn't want to do that, but I did. Uh, but yeah, it's been positive for me because I've been able to work on myself. Something that we've seen a lot with the election.
Well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
He got
Mr.
$3.5
President,
million.
That is not true.
Mr. President,
but, Mr.
it's an open discussion, please.
Now,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's- it
you
is
have
not.
raised.
And a lot of the trends and political climate during the summer, at least, it's gotten a lot of people to pay attention to the world around them instead of being so focused on themselves. They realize how they're part of a larger machine in society. Like we've said with a bunch of different sources, they've advertised more healthy alternatives for both eating, deliveries, and living in isolation. I would have made them mandatory because, as we've seen with other countries, uh, even though they tend to not have a population as big as ours, they got it over pretty quick. So I think what they did wrong most was they didn't act fast enough and they underestimated the ability to adapt of the public. They thought that if they allowed people to panic, then our society would crumble. But we know that because we saw people that weren't panicking, that society continued to crumble. So I think it was mostly the speed at which they responded to the situation and how severe that was. Globally, what we did wrong was as soon as we started to panic, and I'm talking about like the human race as a whole, we stopped caring about each other. So a lot like what happened with the United States, when it first started, the current administration at the time, they decided to respond to this pandemic with xenophobia and
Kung flu. The China virus.
ostracizing those which had been exposed, whereas they should have been providing help so that it would spread to the lowest amount of places possible. It's less so what we did right, but what we chose not to do wrong, which is militarize everything. I mean, it's not necessarily like, good job, you didn't militarize the world. That should be the standard, but it could have been worse. That's what I'm saying. We're starting to become more ostracized and individualistic, at least here in the United States. So although it may sound weird to put it this way, but it's society as a whole here in this country, at least, is moving more towards isolation anyway. But what I've seen from the pandemic is, regardless of that, people have found several ways to be together. So I think this could lead to an innovation in communication long term, and because of how much more aware people are of a lot of different dire subjects like global warming and systemic oppression.
I can't breathe. I can breathe. Please, the name of it. I can breathe here.
This is because of this fast spread of communication. I think we'll start to see a large change in public opinion over the next few years. People will be more accepting of change.
It's over! Hi, what's your reaction? Best day of my life, best day of the year.
And of other people. So I think that will be one of the long-term and short-term effects. Probably try to get a job. That's one of the first things. Although that will probably be one of the first things that will be the most difficult because of how much unemployment has skyrocketed. Finding any job anywhere will be pretty competitive. And I'd probably open a gym membership.
He's got the sniffles. He'll recover in about 15 minutes. That's a case. Add up to it. That's a case.
Give us our freedom, Joe Biden! Joe Biden's covering up this election! He's stealing it!
In the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look.